This is a true horrifying story of the moment you will see the angel of death. This is a moment that every human being that ever lived will see. This angel has been mentioned in all the sacred texts, including Sikhism. In Judaism, the name of this angel is Israel. However, in Islam, this angel's name has not been defined, even though many Muslims believe that it is Israel, though it is not the real name. Every religion describes this angel with minor differences, but generally, he is known to do one thing only. Angels are beautiful beings. There are billions of them, or maybe even trillions around us. They are huge, and they are powerful, and they are made from light. However, there are 4 angels that you do not want to meet. Malik, the guardian of hellfire. Munkar and Nakir, the angels that test the faith of the dead in their tombs. And lastly, the angel of death. There is a narration that I'm not 100% sure about, but it says, the angel of death passes by and looks at every human being 5 times a day, waiting for their time to come. And you know these random shivers that you get? It is said to be that this was a moment that the angel of death has looked at you. I am not sure myself, but we can have Mu'min Abu Mecca to confirm if this is true or not. But what I can definitely confirm is this. This is what will happen the moment you see the angel of death. You will go through a sudden moment where time will be frozen. All your surroundings will no longer be your reality. Your brain will start releasing a chemical called DMT. Your eyes will start to unveil the real world. You will see the darkest being ever created approaching you. You will feel unexplainable pain, and you will start to see your soul leave your body. This is a moment billions of people have been through, and you will too. No human being is immortal. One day, in your lifetime, you will meet this angel. This is a true horrifying story of what causes jinns to possess humans. For those who don't know what jinns are, they are the paranormal. They are demons. Some refer to them as evil spirits. Other religions refer these incidents as demonic possessions. Regardless of what religion you follow, a demonic possession is a thing that is mentioned in your books. This episode is not specifically a story, but I will explain the details on how possessions happen. Now remember, there are 3 causes and 4 conditions behind the jinn possession. These are the 3 causes. 1. Oppression, the rarest cause. A jinn will possess you for the simplest reason. He just doesn't like you. Number 2. Love, the ashiq jinn. A jinn can fall in love with a human and start possessing that person. There are reasons behind this. Maybe you spend a lot of time in your house undressed, thinking no one can see you. The jinn is actually staring at you, and some will even be attracted to you. Number 3. Unintentional harm. When you accidentally harm a jinn, an example, you poured boiling water somewhere outside, and it accidentally harmed the jinn. They will seek vengeance. Now these are the 3 causes. What about the conditions? Can jinns possess you at any time, anywhere? No. There are 4 conditions you must meet before a jinn can possess you. Condition 1. Extreme anger. When you're in a state of extreme anger, you are widening the gate for a demonic possession. Condition 2. Excessive fear. Same thing. When you're in a state of extreme fear of your surroundings. Condition 3. A state of excessive heedlessness, not physically, spiritually. And condition 4, pleasure. It is the state of when you are alone, enjoying your desires. You know, when you do what you do while watching inappropriate content. These are the 4 conditions that you need to be in for a jinn to possess you. But these conditions aren't always the case for a demonic possession. They are the states for the jinns to possess you. And they only open a wider gate for demons to use you. Demonic possessions are real. and they are lethal, and they are not easy to treat. Jinns are predators that we cannot see. This is a true horrifying story of the faithful jinn. I've heard many stories similar to this one, and many people have encountered the same incident. To some, it may not be horrific, but to others, this incident is terrifying. The story took place in Saudi Arabia. A man woke up rushing for the Fajr prayer. For non-Muslims, in Islam, we have 5 prayers a day. One of them is called Fajr. It's very early in the morning, and the prayer is made before sunrise. So the guy woke up rushing, and he realized that he missed the Fajr prayer. He was around 10 minutes late, and everybody was already gone, but the masjid gates were still open. It was still dark outside. The man goes in and prays alone. As he was praying, another man comes in that also missed the prayer and joins him. He didn't really pay attention to the man that was praying with him. He just noticed that he seemed a little different. The guy finishes his prayer and goes outside before the other man. He notices that there was only one pair of slippers outside, which was his. He runs back inside to look for the man that prayed with him, but there was no one inside the mosque. In the same evening, he goes back to the same mosque for the Isha prayer. The Isha prayer is the last prayer of the day. He tells the Imam of that mosque the whole story, and the Imam tells him this: "You were 10 minutes late to the Fajr prayer. Do you know what happened during the prayer you missed?" He said, "What?" The Imam says, "Before we started, there were only 2 men behind me. We began praying. After the Fatiha, I heard a crowd of at least 50 men reciting the word Ameen. I was shocked, wondering when did they all arrive. When I finished, I quickly turned my head and looked back, and all I saw were the same 2 men that were there before I started, shivering from fear." These are jinns. They didn't harm anyone. They're just praying. When you go inside a mosque that's empty, it's not really empty. There are other beings that worship the same God we do. This is a true horrifying story. Part 66. This story happened in the early 2000s. It was late at night. A woman was driving in an unfamiliar area. Her car was old and unreliable, and soon she realized that she had to make a stop for gas. Luckily, she came across a gas station in a few minutes. The gas station was very old-fashioned, in the middle of nowhere. But something about this gas station seems very off. Afraid that she might not find another gas station close by, she reluctantly pulled up and she asked an attendant to fill up the tank. The attendant seemed really nervous as he was filling up the tank, but he finished his job. He then moved towards her car window for payment. She hands him the money. He carefully examined it and told her that the bill was a counterfeit or a fake. The attendant explained that he would have to take her back inside in order to call his manager about the counterfeit bill, as it had to be reported to the bank. She got convinced. She goes inside and sits down. The attendant walks towards the station gates and locks the doors. He turns around and tells her the bill is not a counterfeit. At this point, she froze, thinking she's about to get abused. He tells her this: "I had to get you out of the car because there was a man with a hatchet hiding in the back seat." This kind of crime is very common in the West. It is terrifying to realize that you are driving down the highway for a whole hour with another person hiding in your car, waiting for the right moment. This is the longest true horrifying story episode. This episode is worth the time. The story took place in Nador, Morocco in the year 2015. The story was submitted by Ilyas. Back in 2015, Ilyas was an 18-year-old Moroccan Muslim that lived in Norway. One night, Ilyas was back in Morocco visiting family, and he stayed up late watching a movie at home till 3 in the morning. The living room was very warm, so he got up to open the window for fresh air. As he was at the window, being at the 4th floor in that building, he looks down, and the street was dark and empty, but there was one man wearing black from head to toe with a hood covering his face. He wasn't sure why that man was outside at that time. He looked away, but then peeked one last time out of curiosity. When he looked at him again, the man had his hands on a building's wall. He was strangely just feeling the wall, and out of nowhere, the man vanishes through that wall. He rubbed his eyes in disbelief after what he just witnessed. Ilyas swears that there was no door in that spot. It was just physically impossible. He forgets about this after a while, and then flies back to Norway. 6 months later, in Norway, Ilyas experiences his first ever sleep paralysis, which in Islam is known as Jathum. He vividly remembers having a conversation with a dark figure, and his mom also witnessed him speak in his sleep. He woke up after the paralysis with swollen feet and rashes all over his body. They rushed to the ER, and none of the doctors could diagnose what caused his body to react that way. He was finally discharged after treatment, but after that day, Ilyas was never the same person. He always acted differently. He was antisocial. He was distant from people. And his mom always told him that he needed ruqya. A few months later, they fly back to Morocco for the next holiday season. He was always against his mother's ruqya idea. However, he decided to fight his thoughts and do it. He had a cousin that was also suffering, and she visited a raqi in Morocco quite regularly. So they went together with both of their moms. When they reached, they sat down and waited for their session. Ilyas could hear the raqi in the other room, and he felt extremely uneasy and started to sweat. The Quran recitation, the ruqya, the sounds, made him not even want to look at that direction. He was angry. He went outside for a moment to gain back his senses until their turn finally reached. The raqi called them in and started. Ilyas's cousin immediately started reacting horribly when the Quran started. She was screaming so loud. Ilyas started losing senses throughout his entire body. He was sweating, he was unable to move, and he was shouting from fear. He does pray, and he does read Quran, but he was so confused as to why he was screaming. He felt like he was being tortured. The slightest pinch from the raqi felt like it was a knife stab. It was very powerful, and this is where he felt a jinn's presence inside of him. The following night was the most horrific night for Ilyas. For a whole week, the man was not able to sleep alone, and he would get mentally abused by these demons haunting him. Weeks go by. Ilyas started getting demonic thoughts of harming his own family. He hated everyone. When he would look at his own sister, her face would seem distorted to him. He knows these beings are playing with his head. His whole life turned upside down. He would regularly think of harming his own family, but luckily, he never did. A few months later, Ilyas was back in Norway, and life was back to normal. He was relieved that he was in a good state of mind and that the horror was over. At the time, he worked at a local grocery store. After a Christmas celebration at work, which he did not participate in, it was late at night. He was walking one of his colleagues back home from work. She was a young woman, and she was scared to walk alone. After they reached outside her place, she asked him, "Where's that other girl that was with us?" "What girl?" Ilyas asked. "There was no one there. It was just you and I." She swore that there was another woman with black hair, pale skin, standing next to him the whole time, staring at Ilyas's colleague with anger. Even though this entity gave Ilyas a break, this jinn was still around, haunting everyone that has intentions towards Ilyas. This is a true horrifying story about Ya'juj wa Ma'juj, which are also known as Gog and Magog. In part 37, I explained about who Ya'juj wa Ma'juj really are. If you did not watch part 37, please go watch it before watching this episode. I previously mentioned that you do not need to be a Muslim to believe in Ya'juj wa Ma'juj. They are mentioned in all the sacred texts and all religions. These people are isolated from all civilizations, and they will come out one day, and they will rape, kill, and murder everyone. No army will be able to beat them. Ya'juj wa Ma'juj will be released only after the death of the Dajjal. Prophet Isa alayhi salam, also known as Jesus, will be around when this happens. He will be among us, and he will be notified that there is a qawm, a creation that has been released. Take your people and hide in the mountains of Al-Tur, because you will not be able to beat them. They are too many. They will pass by a lake called Tabariya, and they will drink it all. The last ones who reach the lake will say, "There was water here once upon a time." That's how many they are. They will start fighting and killing everyone until the whole world is conquered. They will shout, "We have killed the inhabitants of the world," but they don't know that Isa and his companions are hiding. "Let us now kill the inhabitants of the skies." They will aim their arrows to the sky and start shooting. Their arrows will return with blood on them, and they will say, "We are now the kings of earth." Isa and his companions will suffer from hunger. They are hiding in the mountains for God knows how long, until one day a worm disease will spread and kill Ya'juj wa Ma'juj. They will all die together instantly. One narration says, there will be so many carcasses of Ya'juj wa Ma'juj, nowhere you will walk on earth will not stench. God will send rain for days to clean the land, and then it will only be a matter of time till the day of judgment. This is a true horrifying story of one of the most haunted dolls. This story took place in 2013. A family purchased an Elsa doll from Disney's movie Frozen. The doll recited phrases from the movie Frozen and sang "Let It Go" when a button on its necklace was pressed. For 2 years, it did that in English. In 2015, this doll started alternating between Spanish and English. There wasn't a button that changed these. It was just random, as the mother stated. The mother says the doll would randomly speak and sing, even with its switch turned off. But the creepiest thing about this all is that this family owned this doll for more than 6 years and never changed its batteries. The family wasn't concerned at the time. They assumed that this was a programming glitch. In December of 2019, that's 6 years later, the daughters reached a point where they were afraid of the doll, as it caused disturbing noises randomly at night. The mother decided to throw the doll away. Weeks later, they found it inside a bench in their living room. The kids insisted that they didn't put it there. It was too deep inside the garbage for the children to reach in and bring it back. At that point, Elsa ceased to sing the English rendition of "Let It Go." all together speaking only Spanish when pressed. The family decided to double bag this bizarre doll and place it at the bottom of the garbage, which then will get taken out on garbage day. The trash was taken. They went on a trip that day, but when they returned, Elsa too had to come back and was waiting in the backyard of their home. This is a real picture. They knew this was not a programming glitch. A jinn is using this doll as a tool to disturb this family. This is real footage of the doll returning for the second time after being thrown away twice.
Dentro del castillo. Soy la princesa Elsa de Arden. Jugamos otra vez.
This is a true horrifying story that took place in Somalia in the year 1998. Adil, a young man from Somalia, worked in a goat farming business in Mogadishu, the capital of Somalia. One day, Adil had orders in the city of Barbara. He had to drive there to buy sheep and goats. Barbara is a very long drive from the capital. During the road trip, he had to find a place to stay for the night. He found an abandoned house, very cheap to rent because it had no electricity. He paid the taker to spend the night there. He took off to buy some cigarettes and dinner for himself, and he went back to this abandoned house. He had a candle with him for some light inside the house while having dinner. After dinner, Adil goes outside and starts his car. Late at night, he puts a cassette in the car, leaves the door open, and plays music. Cassettes were used in most cars back in the 90s for music. Outside the car, he lights up a cigarette and vibes to the music in pitch darkness. Time goes by, and suddenly the music stops out of nowhere. As he turns towards the car, the door of the car slams shut. He assumed it could have been the wind. He takes the cassette out, flips it, and puts it back inside. Right before lighting his next cigarette, the music stops again. As he turns towards the car, the door slams shut. At this point, whatever happened caught Adil's attention. He takes his torch, walks around, and starts reading his prayers. A few meters behind the house, he notices a woman covered from head to toe. He couldn't see clearly. The torch wasn't strong enough, but as he got closer, this being expands. It got bigger after every step he took. He runs towards the car. He tries to start the car, but the car won't start. He knew that this house is haunted. These were jinns. He is now stuck inside his car. He looks at the rear view mirror and he sees the same dark figure behind him. Adil is in a very bad situation. For 5 minutes straight, this figure did not move a muscle. A minute felt like an hour. His throat started drying out from fear, and there was nothing he can do. He stayed in his car, begging and praying to God till the sun came up. Hours go by. He opens his eyes, starts his car, and drives back to Mogadishu, leaving everything behind. This is a true horrifying story, part 71. In episode 4 and episode 47, I talked about one of the world's most haunted destinations, Al-Qasimi Palace. And just yesterday, I visited this palace. My colleagues from NAS News Arabia and I were trying to get a filming permit in this palace for several weeks, and we finally got it. We took our filming equipment and we visited the palace. This palace was abandoned since 1985, and ever since, no one was able to live here because of the recurrent paranormal events that take place inside. At first, when we reached, we were just messing around, thinking that most of the stories were just rumors. After sunset, visitors were not allowed to visit the palace. It was just us. And that's where things started taking a turn. While the guys were taking B-roll footage for the news coverage, I noticed a room Something in the corner of my eye caught my attention. I felt like someone was sitting down, staring at me. I ignored the uneasy feeling I got, and we head upstairs and continued our work. We went inside a room, not touching anything at all. Carlo, my colleague, pulls a joke and says, "Jinns, you can come out now. Don't be shy." And I kid you not, this happens.
Oh shit. Bro, this is not us, bro. Wallah al-azim,
Unfortunately, I didn't get the shot of when it happened. A painting that was hung for more than 30 years falls down, almost injuring Carlo after what he said. We were asked to immediately leave the room and leave the portrait as it is. We went to another bedroom and we noticed a special antique painting. My team set up the equipment and started filming. I was using my phone documenting my filming crew until we experienced this.
I'm gonna take a face shot over here. See? I don't know.
The door leads to an empty pantry with no other access. The door was locked, and we were certain that there was no one inside. I kept documenting my filming crew in case it happens again, and as expected, it happens again.
Bro.
About 20 minutes after this incident, Carlo was not feeling good at all. He felt cold, disturbed, and unwelcomed.
Huh?
Let's go home.
What?
I'm not feeling good.
You're not feeling good?
Yeah.
Why?
He was acting very strange. We took all our things and left the palace for good. For paranormal enthusiasts, I'd recommend visiting this palace during the day. Do not go at night. Al-Qasimi Palace is not a joke. This is a true horrifying story that took place in Pakistan. This story was submitted by Amna. In the early 2000s, a young Pakistani man worked in the Jinnah International Airport in Karachi. He would always ride his motorcycle to work and he only did night shifts. One night, he finished his duty, hopped on his bike, and started driving home. All the roads were empty as it was past midnight. As he was driving, he saw a woman sitting on the edge of the road, crying. He was hesitant to approach, but he felt bad and approached her anyways. He asks, "Is everything okay?" She says, "I forgot my way home. Can you take me?" He says, "Of course." The woman hops on the back seat of the motorcycle and he starts driving down. The woman in the back seat starts sharing stories to this man. She tells him stories about the Pakistan and India partition in 1947 and how many people suffered and died during that era. And she would tell these stories very vividly, as if she lived back in these times. Moments later, she points at a deserted area on the side of the highway and she says, "This is where I died." He looks at her hand as she points and he realizes that this isn't an ordinary human being. His spine shivers from fear. He jumps off his motorcycle at a very high speed. He starts running with his injured arms and legs. He looks behind to see if the woman is behind him, and there she was, standing still from a distance without a single scratch. He luckily sees a police car approaching and he loses his mind. He explains everything to the police officer while the woman still stands and stares at him from a distance. The second he gets inside the police car, the woman vanishes. What could this be? Who is this woman? This is a true horrifying story. Part 73. This story took place in Argentina in 2022. This is by far the creepiest incident that I have ever seen caught on tape. There's a security guard in a hospital working on a late night shift. The hospital was very quiet. No patients were coming in around that time. At 3 a.m. sharp, the automatic doors open up front as the security guard was sitting down. He gets up and greets the patient that came in. He grabs the registration papers from his desk and he walks up towards the patient to have them fill out the papers. As the security guard fills out the paper for the patient, he goes and he grabs a wheelchair. It seemed like the patient was in pain or maybe not able to walk. And then, as the patient sits down on the chair, he pushes the patient towards the examination rooms. But you see, there's a plot twist to all of this. There was no patient. The security guard was talking to someone that was not visible on camera. This is the CCTV footage of what happened in the hospital in Argentina. Look at the doors sliding open. He clearly sees someone before he gets up. He asks them for the information or the reason for their visit. He proceeds to tell them to come inside. And then he walks and grabs the wheelchair for them. What kind of being is this man speaking to? Could this possibly be a jinn? What do you guys think?